The boardroom on the 58th floor of Skyspire Tower was a cathedral of ambition, its towering windows framing Manhattan's skyline like a chessboard of steel and dreams. Eliza Hart, CEO of Hart Enterprises, stood at the head of a polished mahogany table, her gold-tipped Mont Blanc pen hovering over a $3 billion merger contract with Nexus Corp, a deal that could crown her legacy or bury it. Her navy suit was sharp, her presence a force, but a shadow of doubt flickered in her eyes, unseen by the room of lawyers and executives. Then a voice cut through the air, low and sharp as a blade. "Ma'am, Section 7-4. It's a trap." Heads turned. In the shadowed corner stood Ethan Cole, a janitor in a gray uniform, a wrench in his calloused hand, his badge glinting faintly. Silence crashed like a wave. "I'm sorry?" Eliza's voice was calm but cut like glass, her gaze still on the contract. Ethan didn't flinch, his hazel eyes steady despite the weight of every stare. Section 7.4 of the merger contract. It hands over executive control. Check Appendix C. Victor Lang, the CFO and Eliza's trusted confidant, surged from his seat, his face red with fury. "Is this a joke? Who let this janitor into the boardroom?" he barked, waving at security. "Get him out." Eliza raised a hand, her gesture silencing the room. "Wait." Her eyes locked onto Ethan's, probing for truth. "Say that again." Ethan's throat tightened, but his voice held firm. "Section 7.4 is a trap. Sign that, and you lose everything your father built." Victor stormed forward, nostrils flaring. "This is absurd, Eliza. He's delusional." But Eliza capped her pen, closed the contract, and stepped toward Ethan. 3 strides brought her face to face with the man who'd halted a $3 billion deal. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice soft but laced with steel. "And why should I trust a man with a wrench over a room full of lawyers?" Ethan met her gaze unshaken. "I'm Ethan Cole. I studied finance at Columbia before life rerouted me. I'm not here for gain, but if you sign without checking Section 7.4, Nexus Corp will own you." Victor scoffed, his laugh biting. "Columbia? A janitor from Columbia? How poetic." Ethan ignored him, his eyes fixed on Eliza. "They're playing a game, Ms. Hart, and they're betting you won't notice." The silence was heavy, electric. Eliza's voice sliced through. "Everyone out!" Victor protested. "Eliza!" "Out!" she commanded, her tone final. The room emptied, leaving only 2 souls and a ticking clock. 30 minutes later, the boardroom was a ghost town. Ethan stood by the table, his wrench a quiet symbol of a life he hadn't chosen. Eliza sat at the head, flipping through the contract with a predator's focus, suspicion now afire in her chest. "How did you know?" she asked, her voice softer, almost vulnerable. Ethan glanced at the windows, where the sun bled gold over Central Park. "I've written contracts like this before, back when I thought I'd be where you are. Before the world decided I was better at fixing elevators." Eliza studied him, searching for cracks. "Why today? Why risk your job for this?" He shrugged, tired but resolute. Better to lose a paycheck than watch someone walk blindfolded into a $3 billion ambush. Eliza rose, her heels clicking on marble as she crossed to the windows, Manhattan sprawling below like a battlefield. "If you're wrong, this isn't a mistake. It's sabotage," she said, her voice cold. "I know," Ethan replied simply. She turned, eyes like ice. "Do you have proof?" "Not enough for court, but enough to make you question those closest to you." Her breath caught. "Victor?" Ethan's silence was answer enough. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m., 56th floor," she said, her heart racing beneath her calm. "Bring what you have. If this is a stunt, I'll ensure you never work in this city again." Ethan nodded. "That's fair." As she reached the door, she paused, her voice a whisper. "Only 2 kinds of men interrupt a $3 billion signing. Fools or those who've lost too much to fear anything." Ethan's silence carried more weight than words. He wasn't afraid. That night in a cramped Queens apartment, Ethan sat beside his 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, under a flickering lamp. She scribbled in a coloring book, broken crayons scattering flecks of color like tiny dreams. "Daddy, why are you so quiet?" she asked, her eyes bright with innocence. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, his smile heavy with love. Because I might have changed someone's life today, kiddo. Did you fix something? He chuckled, warmth tinged with exhaustion. Maybe. Not a pipe or a door, but maybe a destiny. Sophie hugged him fiercely, whispering, "You're the best fixer in the whole wide world, Daddy." Ethan, once a Columbia star, now a man with grease-stained hands, felt tomorrow's weight settle in his chest. Everything could change. He was ready. At 8 a.m., the elevator doors parted on the 56th floor of Sky Spire Tower, a world of tailored suits and seven-figure portfolios. Ethan stepped out, his gray uniform unchanged, his boots polished, his purpose unshakable. Eliza waited alone in the executive conference room, her navy pantsuit sharp, her tablet glowing. Her eyes met his, cool, cautious, but alive with curiosity. "You're punctual," she said, not looking up. "It's the one thing I never forgot," Ethan replied, a faint smile breaking through. She gestured to a chair. "Sit. Impress me." Ethan unzipped his worn backpack, pulling out a thin folder. "No fancy slides or charts, just this, and some common sense." Eliza arched a brow. "Common sense doesn't survive billion-dollar deals." "That's the problem," Ethan said, his voice piercing. "The deadliest lies hide in simple truths." She leaned forward, intrigued. "Go on." He opened the folder. "This is the contract they wanted you to sign." Ethan flipped to a hidden page in the folder, his finger tracing a paragraph buried in section 7.4. "This is the modified version, tucked away in an encrypted appendix most wouldn't notice unless they knew where to look. It redirects executive voting power to a shell entity, Hart Strategic Solutions. On paper, you keep 65% ownership, but post-merger, control shifts to their board." Eliza's eyes narrowed, her lips a tight line. "And who's on that board?" Ethan's voice was steady, but heavy. "Three names, two Nexus Corp directors, and Victor Lang." The room seemed to shrink, the air thinning as if sucked out by the weight of betrayal. Eliza's fingers curled around the table's edge, her knuckles white. She said nothing, but her silence screamed louder than words. "I cross-checked SEC filings in Delaware's registry," Ethan continued, his voice calm but relentless. "Hart Strategic Solutions is a ghost. Created 6 weeks ago. No operations, no employees, just a single bank account in the Bahamas. Victor's signature is on the trust documents. Twice." Eliza closed her eyes, her breath shallow. When they opened, they were sharp as frost. 15 years, she whispered. "He held my father's hand as he died. Stood by me when the board crowned me CEO. I thought loyalty was priceless." Her gaze drifted to the window, Manhattan's skyline glinting like a blade. "Maybe betrayal is just cheaper." Ethan stayed silent, letting her pain breathe. "Why didn't I see it?" Eliza murmured, more to herself than to him. Ethan's voice softened, gentle but unflinching. "Because men like Victor wear trust like a tailored suit, ironing out the lies until they're invisible." Her eyes met his, a spark of belief flickering beneath her guarded exterior. "And you, Ethan, what's a janitor gain from exposing a corporate coup?" He smiled, weary but honest. "I have lost everything once. I'm not afraid to lose again. But letting someone walk off a cliff when I see the edge, that's a regret I can't live with." Eliza stared, seeing not a janitor, but a man who'd once mattered and still did. The morning sun flooded the room, casting half of Eliza's face in golden light, the other in shadow mirroring her divided heart. "The world's full of pretenders," she said, her voice low. "Then someone like you walks in, holding a wrench and caring enough to risk everything." Ethan exhaled, her words settling deep in his chest. "Where do we go from here?" he asked. Eliza turned, her CEO armor snapping back into place. "We dig deeper, quietly. No alerts, no confrontation. Not yet." Ethan nodded. "I can help, but we'll need Victor's shared drive, meeting notes, and someone in legal who hasn't been bought." "I know someone," Eliza said, picking up the folder. "But we move carefully." She paused, her eyes locking onto his. "Today you reminded me integrity isn't dead." "It just works the night shift," Ethan quipped, a faint smile breaking through. "Be careful. Victor's not foolish. He'll sense you're stalling." Let him, she replied, her voice steel. The worst mistake a liar makes is thinking they have already won. Later in the janitor's locker room, Ethan leaned against a dented metal cabinet, his hands trembling. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline of stepping back into a world he'd left behind. His friend Mike Torres, another maintenance worker, eyed him curiously. You look like you just faced a lion, man. Ethan chuckled, low and tired. Maybe I did. What did you do? Fix the CEO's coffee machine? No, Ethan said, a spark in his eyes. Maybe her future. Mike raised a brow. You're too smart for this job. Ethan paused, his voice soft. This job saved me, Mike. But maybe it's time I remember who I was. By Tuesday afternoon, Eliza was no longer reading documents. She was dissecting them. Every comma, every footnote in the Nexus Corp contract was a battlefield. Her once unshakable confidence had morphed into a focused paranoia, not born of weakness, but of awakening. Alone in her office, the floor-to-ceiling windows cast golden rays across the stone floor, the city sprawling like a chessboard where she no longer knew her pieces. Her phone buzzed. Victor's message. Meeting at 4 p.m., final review. I'll bring the updated NDA. Let's wrap this. Her thumbs hovered, then stopped. She locked the screen, her heart a storm of resolve. Across Sky Spire Tower, in a dusty utility closet turned war room, Ethan stood over a folding table covered with papers, circles, arrows, sticky notes mapping a conspiracy. A pot of burnt coffee steamed beside him, unglamorous but real. A knock startled him. He opened the door to Clara Nguyen, a lawyer in a gray blazer, her sharp eyes framed by thin glasses. You're Ethan? She asked. Depends. You IRS. She smirked. Clara Nguyen. Eliza said you'd explain. Said I'm the only lawyer here who still sleeps at night. Ethan stepped aside. Then you're who we need. He handed her a copy of Appendix C. Within minutes, Clara's professionalism cracked into disbelief. This isn't a merger, she muttered. It's a silent coup. Ethan nodded. And it's been hiding in plain sight. Clara's fingers traced a paragraph in the appendix, her eyes narrowing. This phrasing, Victor's signature style, he calls it corporate fog, dressing lies in official jargon to blur the truth. Ethan leaned in, his jaw tight. Can you verify if it holds up in court? Clara closed the folder slowly, her voice low but certain. If this is real, Victor's not just committing fraud. He's orchestrating it with surgical precision. Unless we stop him, Eliza will sign away Hart Enterprises in 72 hours. Ethan nodded, his eyes hard. Then we're racing the clock. That evening, Eliza sat alone in the rooftop garden of Sky Spire Tower, her sanctuary since her father's death. The city's skyline blinked like wary eyes, but tonight, none felt like allies. Ethan approached, a folder in hand, his steps quiet but deliberate. She didn't turn, but her voice greeted him, heavy with memory. My father said betrayal always hides behind a handshake. Ethan sat beside her, the city's hum a distant chorus. He was a wise man, built this empire from 2 desks and a broken coffee pot. Eliza's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. I swore to protect his legacy. Ethan handed her the folder. Then you'll have to fight for it. Eliza opened it, her eyes scanning Clara's legal notes, corporate filings, and the ownership structure of Hart Strategic Solutions. Her finger paused on a wire transfer, $2.7 million from Nexus Corp's integration fund to a private trust. Guess whose name is on it? She said flatly. Victor, twice. Her voice cracked, betraying the pain beneath her armor. It's not the betrayal that cuts deepest. It's how blindly I trusted him. Ethan's voice was soft, steady. That's not your failure, Eliza. Trust is the currency of leadership. Without it, you're just a tyrant with a title. She turned, her eyes searching his. And you, Ethan, who broke your trust? He hesitated, the weight of years in his pause. A college roommate. We built a startup together. I trusted him with our first investor round. He vanished with everything, leaving my name on the ruins. Eliza's gaze softened, seeing the man behind the uniform. That's why you're here. You know the pain of a collapsing world. Ethan nodded. And I won't let anyone else fall through that void. Silence hung between them, thick with unspoken truths. Eliza stood, facing the city's glittering expanse. We need more to bring him down. I'll find it, Ethan promised, his voice low but resolute. Why you, Ethan? Why risk everything for me? He stepped closer, his eyes unwavering. Because someone once saw me when I was invisible. I owe the world that debt. Her shoulders softened, just a fraction. You still have my clearance badge? He pulled it from his pocket. Never let it go. Good, she said, her voice steel. Tomorrow we dig deeper. Nexus Corp's server logs, board recordings, Victor's travel data. I want it all. Ethan nodded. You'll have it. As he turned to leave, Eliza's voice stopped him. Ethan, he paused. You're not invisible anymore. For the first time in years, Ethan felt seen, not for his past or his uniform, but for the integrity he'd fought to keep. That night in his Queen's apartment, he lay on the couch. Sophie curled against him, her soft breaths a lullaby of safety. Street lights cast shadows across the ceiling, dancing like ghosts of his past. Tomorrow held risk, maybe ruin, but Ethan had a mission now, a chance to protect something worth saving. He wouldn't fail again. The next morning, Sky Spire Tower buzzed with false normalcy. Keyboards clattered, elevators chimed, suits moved with practiced confidence. But beneath the surface, a fracture had formed in the glass of power, and Ethan was tracing it to its source. At 7:48 a.m., he entered the secured records archive on the 41st floor, a visitor badge pinned to his chest, a clipboard in hand, a maintenance man on a routine digital inspection, courtesy of Clara's forged work order. The archive was cold, its servers humming like silent sentinels. Ethan moved with precision, following Eliza's inventory tags to server 12A, the oldest, most overlooked unit. He slipped a custom encrypted USB drive, prepared by Clara, into the port, watching the transfer bar creep forward. Minutes ticked by. Then a folder appeared. Conf Room Echo. Ethan's pulse quickened. He opened it. Dozens of audio files, timestamps, meeting IDs. He clicked the latest one. Victor's voice crisp and cold. She's stalling. Push the vote. If she resists, we start the mental health campaign. Ethan's grip tightened on the mouse, his pulse hammering as Victor Lang's voice echoed from the server. She's stalling. Push the vote. If she resists, we start the mental health campaign. The board loves a martyr but fears instability more. Another voice unfamiliar chimed in. And the janitor? Victor scoffed. No one in maintenance is that articulate. I'm scrubbing his file. If he shows up again, we bury him in HR red tape. The file cut off. Ethan sat frozen in the dark archive, servers humming like digital ghosts around him. They weren't just stealing hard enterprises. They were plotting to ruin Eliza and crush him. With a steady hand, he clicked copy all and pocketed the USB drive, his resolve hardening like steel. An hour later, Ethan strode into Eliza's office without knocking. She was mid-call, but one look at his face made her end it with a curt, "We'll talk later." She stood, eyes searching his. "What did you find?" Ethan placed the drive on her desk. They've been recording boardroom talks for months, planning not just the merger, but how to discredit you if you fight back. Eliza plugged in the drive, Victor's voice filling the room, her jaw clenched, eyes shutting briefly. "I trusted him with my father's legacy," she whispered, voice raw with betrayal. Ethan's tone was gentle but firm. "Men like Victor don't steal companies. They steal trust. Once that's gone, everything shatters like glass." She opened her eyes, staring at the skyline, its lights cold and distant. "We need a plan." "We have one," Ethan said. "But first, we test who's truly with you." That afternoon, Eliza called an impromptu meeting in a windowless side room. No recordings, just 3 senior executives, including Margaret Ellis, her longtime chief of staff. "I've found discrepancies," Eliza began, her voice measured but piercing. "I need full transparency. Who authorized the data for Appendix C?" Margaret, poised and polished, folded her hands calmly. "Everything goes through Victor. You told me to trust him." The room stilled. Ethan, seated in the corner, scribbling notes as a pretense, spoke softly. Trust doesn't mean silence, Margaret. Ignoring red flags isn't loyalty. It's complicity. Her eyes narrowed, voice sharp. Excuse me? Eliza didn't stop him. Her gaze locked on Margaret with a clarity that cut through years of loyalty. I've been blind, she said. That ends now. Margaret stood, cool and defiant. Are you accusing me? Eliza met her eyes. I'm asking if you remember who you were, before power made you forget. Margaret left without a word, her silence damning. In Eliza's office later, Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Eliza poured a glass of water, but let it sit untouched, her voice quiet. She's part of it. I saw it in her eyes. Ethan nodded. You don't need everyone, just the right ones. Her expression softened, unguarded for a moment. You make it sound simple. It's not, he said, but it's honest, and that's rare up here. She tilted her head, curious. Why do you talk like you're both outside this world and still fighting to fix it? Ethan shrugged, a faint smile hiding old wounds. Because some of us were never meant to be on the outside. Her eyes softened. You're not like the others. Neither are you, he replied. A silent moment passed, heavy with recognition. Not love, not yet, but a bond forged in shared truth. That night, Ethan returned to his queen's apartment, finding Sophie asleep on the couch, surrounded by drawings. One showed him wielding a shield, standing between two figures and a red-eyed monster. He smiled. His daughter didn't know his fight, but she knew his heart. Kissing her forehead, he whispered, Almost there, kiddo. A storm of purpose swelled in his chest, not fear, but a vow to Eliza, Sophie, and the man he'd once been. I won't stop until the truth has a name. Near midnight, Eliza unlocked the 43rd floor archive, Sky Spire Tower a skeleton of empty corridors and flickering exit signs. Her heart pounded, loud enough to rival the hum of air conditioners. She needed evidence, hard, undeniable proof, not just instinct. Ethan followed, moving with quiet precision, a laptop and hard drive in hand. A billionaire CEO and a janitor, an unlikely pair bound by a shared mission. Server access is limited to 30 minutes, Eliza whispered. After that, the system flags us. Ethan's voice was low, steady. 30 minutes is a lifetime when you know what to hunt for. Let's dance. They dove into Victor's encrypted folders, buried under mundane labels like budget drafts. Ethan's eyes locked on a file, Nexus Corp merger, pre-final revision. Here, he said. The screen revealed two versions, one granting Hart Enterprises 65% voting rights, the other slashing it to 15%. It's worse than we thought, Ethan murmured. Victor's not merging with you. He's replacing you. Eliza sank into a chair, the screen's blue light casting cracks across her composed facade. She whispered, He held my hand at my father's funeral, smiled while planning to sell the bones of this company. Ethan stayed silent, letting her grief breathe. A few clicks later, he found a folder labeled Isabella. Emails, photos, a video. Who's Isabella? He asked. Eliza's breath caught. Isabella Torres, my ex-CMO. She left 2 years ago after I refused to license our tech to a defense firm. Ethan opened her video. Isabella's voice was cold, calculated. Eliza will sign. She trusts Victor more than herself. Victor smirked. Then she's earned what's coming. The truth lay bare, sharp as a blade, cutting through years of loyalty. The grainy boardroom video flickered on the laptop, Victor Lang's smirk searing into the dim archive room. Across from him sat Isabella Torres, her voice cold as ice. Eliza will sign. She trusts you more than herself. Victor's laugh was a blade. Then she's earned what's coming. Their words unfolded a chilling blueprint. Exit strategies, offshore accounts in the Bahamas, a legacy carved up with the precision of butchers. Eliza watched unblinking, her breath held captive. When the video ended, she rose, pressing her palm against the cold glass window. Manhattan's lights glittered below, a web of stars trapped in steel. My father warned me, she whispered, voice trembling with restrained fury. The real enemy isn't across the table. It's the friend beside you, hiding a knife. Ethan stepped closer, his presence steady. You don't have to face this alone. Eliza turned, her eyes blazing with pain. You don't understand. Since he died, I've carried every decision alone. Believing Victor guarded my blind spot, but he was aiming for it. Ethan pulled a photo from his jacket, security footage of Victor and Isabella in a cafe near Sky Spire Tower. Laughing, passing a flash drive, time-stamped 5 days ago. Eliza's hand trembled as she took it, her voice sharpening to a razor's edge. This ends now. Tomorrow we face the board. Ethan hesitated. Not yet. They'll call it forge, or worse, paranoia. We need a direct link to the fake contracts, and to catch Victor in the act. She nodded slowly, trust flickering in her gaze. What's the plan? Ethan's voice dropped, conspiratorial. We bait him. The next morning, Eliza glided into the executive breakfast, her composure a polished mask. Victor greeted her with his usual smile, offering a glass of grapefruit juice. You look well rested, he said, charm dripping like venom. Funny, she replied, her voice cool. I slept like someone with nothing to hide. His laugh was too smooth, but a flicker in his eyes betrayed him. I reviewed the merger file last night, she added casually. I have questions about Section 7.4. Can you walk me through it? Victor blinked, a crack in his facade. Of course, he said, recovering. Let's set a time. Tonight, Eliza pressed, her tone deliberate. Just us. No distractions. He nodded, hesitant. Tonight. From the service hallway, Ethan watched, noting the tightening of Victor's jaw. The trap was set. That night, Ethan met Eliza outside her office. She handed him a voice-activated recorder, its sleek design belying its power. Plant this before he arrives, she said. Ethan nodded, meeting her gaze. Not as a janitor, but as a man who believed in her fight. Are you ready? She asked, her voice softer now. He looked at her, his resolve unshakable. Let's finish what we started. As Eliza stepped into the lion's den, Ethan melted into the shadows where he belonged. Not to be seen, but to ensure the truth was. The executive lounge of Sky Spire Tower was a shrine to legacy, its marble floors and muted lighting whispering power. A decanter of rare scotch sat untouched on a walnut table, its opulence stark against the night's tension. Eliza sat at the far end, legs crossed, her gray blazer and black silk exuding elegance and intent. Beneath her calm, a storm raged. Victor entered, leather folder in hand, his smile too perfect. Traffic, he said, glancing at his watch. No worries, Eliza replied, gesturing to a seat. We have time. He sat, unfolding his folder with practiced ease. So, Section 7.4. Questions? Eliza leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. Let's talk control. Victor chuckled, but it was hollow. Control, Eliza? The structure ensures your autonomy. The board alignment's a formality. Funny, she said, her voice soft but cutting. Formality doesn't usually involve wire transfers to offshore accounts. Victor's smile twitched, a crack in his armor. You've been digging. I've been seeing, she corrected, her gaze unrelenting. For the first time in years. He leaned back, arms crossed, feigning ease. Careful, Eliza. Accusations echo. So do betrayals, she shot back, especially from the man my father told me to trust. Silence hung like a loaded gun. Behind a maintenance panel Ethan had rigged that afternoon, the recorder captured every word. Eliza pressed on. I want the truth, Victor. Not from lawyers or files. You. His voice darkened. Truth or the version that lets you sleep? Truth, she said, unyielding. Victor shrugged, arrogance seeping through. You lost Hart Enterprises the day you ran it with a conscience. You rejected military contracts, the Dubai oil deal, and sank capital into clean tech that won't profit for decades. You're not a CEO. You're a dreamer. This company needs a shark, and I'm giving the board what they want. Eliza blinked, her voice low and cold. A hostile takeover. A rescue, he corrected, standing, from your ideals. You'll get a generous exit package. Call it the illusion of grace. Eliza rose, her eyes blazing. You mistook kindness for weakness. That's your first mistake. The second? Thinking I'd let my father's legacy rot while you play king. Before Victor could respond, Ethan stepped in, holding the recorder. Hi, Victor. Caught the whole show. Oscar-worthy. Victor's eyes widened, panic fracturing his control. You, he spat. The janitor. Ethan smiled. We're good at slipping in unnoticed. Victor turned to Eliza, desperate. This isn't legal. Clara Nguyen stepped through the doorway, file in hand. It's admissible in an internal investigation authorized by the CEO. Your email approving the Nexus Corp transfer seals it. Victor spun, cornered. I carried this company through 3 recessions, and I ensured it didn't become what we fought against, Eliza said, her voice steady. Security appeared, silent and professional. Victor stood frozen, his venom spent. As he was led away, Eliza's gaze held no triumph, only resolve. In that moment, Victor Lang stood diminished, stripped of his titles and cunning, a shadow dwarfed by the legacy he'd tried to steal. Security emerged, silent and professional, their presence a quiet verdict. Eliza gave a single nod, her face unyielding. Victor walked past, his eyes burning with venom that could no longer touch her. Then he was gone, swallowed by the corridor's cold embrace. Outside, Eliza stepped onto Sky Spire Tower's rooftop, the wind tugging at her coat. She didn't cry, didn't speak, just stood, a woman who'd tamed a storm. Ethan joined her, his voice soft. I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. You didn't break this. You turned on the light. They stood in silence, Manhattan's lights flickering below like a heartbeat. Can you rebuild from betrayal's bones? She asked. Ethan gazed at the skyline. Only if the bones are still honest. Eliza turned, her eyes glistening but resolute. And am I? Ethan held her gaze unwavering. You're the only one here brave enough to bleed for what's right. Her strength was her silence, tears unnecessary. Help me, she said, not to survive, but to build something better. I will, Ethan promised, not because you're broken, but because you were only buried. Under the cold stars, Eliza took a breath, unchained from silence, no longer alone. Days later, sunlight flooded her office, golden and alive, the blinds flung open, windows gleaming with earned promise. She stood by the glass, holding black coffee, raw and unadorned. Ethan's boots thudded softly behind her. You're early, she said, not turning. You're glowing, he replied. She glanced back, smirking. I fired my facialist. Truth works better than serums, he chuckled, leaning against her desk. Board meeting in 30. Ready for the circus? I was born in it, she said, turning fully. Today, I claim the tent. Ethan studied her. You don't have to be your father, or Victor's pawn. You're right, she said. My father built this on grit. Victor tried greed. I'll rebuild with grace. Ethan smiled. That's a stronger foundation. Sophie peeked through the door, clutching a folded drawing. Miss Eliza, she whispered. Eliza knelt, smiling warmly. Morning, sweetheart. Sophie handed her the paper, a sketch of Eliza in a superhero cape, shield emblazoned with a heart, Ethan beside her with a toolbox, Sophie in his hand. Can I keep this? Eliza asked. Sophie nodded. Heroes wear kindness, not masks. Eliza's eyes shimmered. You'll change the world, Sophie. No, the girl said. You already are. 30 minutes later, Eliza strode into the boardroom, a chamber of power with its mahogany table and skeptical suits. She brought no slides, no lawyers, just truth. Before we begin, she said, standing tall, let me be uncorporate. I failed you, not in profits, but in vision. I let loyalty to people trump principles, and rot took root. That ends today. Murmurs rippled. Victor Lang is gone. His actions are with legal and will cooperate fully. A board member began. Eliza, she raised a hand. I'm not defending my crown. I'm rebuilding our kingdom, starting with its soul. She outlined a new oversight committee, employee voting on environmental decisions, bonuses tied to values, and equity for janitors and cafeteria workers. The room stilled. Ethan in the back watched a woman reclaim her empire with light, not fire. This isn't PR, she said. It's legacy, ours to shape. Harold Grayson, the eldest board member, spoke. Your father said, when winds shift, only the rooted survive. Eliza, you're rooted deeper than profit. The vote was unanimous. In the elevator, Eliza held her father's cufflinks, a symbol of inherited weight. I tried to live up to a name, she said, but it needed me to redefine it. Ethan smiled. You didn't rewrite it, you redeemed it. She handed him an envelope. Your title, she said, smirking. Director of Integrity and Innovation. Ethan laughed. Is that real? It is now, she replied. I don't need an MBA, just a compass. That evening on the rooftop garden, soft lanterns glowed as Eliza, Ethan, and Sophie sat on a picnic blanket, eating takeout. Billionaires eat noodles from a box? Ethan teased. Only those who've been hungry, Eliza grinned. Sophie dozed against him. You didn't have to give me a job, he said. I gave you a place, she replied, her eyes meeting his, no distance left. You gave me a reason to show up again, Eliza whispered. Promise me, when the towers shake, you'll remind me who I am. Every time, Ethan said, his voice a vow. Every single time, Ethan vowed, his voice a quiet anchor. Under the soft glow of lanterns, Manhattan's hum pulsed below, and two hearts once fractured by betrayal found a new rhythm. Not of fear, but of unity. 2 weeks had passed since Victor Lang's fall, and Hard Enterprises bloomed with a quiet miracle. Not profit, though numbers climbed, nor headlines, though whispers of hope stirred. It was trust, fragile, tender, weaving through open-door meetings and warm greetings. Employees lingered late, not from duty, but belief. Even the coffee carried a brighter taste. For Eliza Hart and Ethan Cole, something deeper stirred, a warmth unspoken, shifting from tension to respect, now teetering on the edge of something neither dared name. On a crisp Saturday morning, Eliza stood outside a Queens community center, checking her watch, scanning for Ethan's familiar frame. Sophie clutched a box of crayons, her eyes bright with purpose. Today was Notes of Hope, a program Eliza had funded at Sophie's urging. Maybe Daddy got lost, Eliza said gently. Sophie shook her head. He doesn't get lost. He gets caught in his thoughts. They're heavier than his tools. Before Eliza could reply, Ethan jogged up, shirt wrinkled, breath short. I'm late, he panted, but alive. Eliza's smile was half teasing, half concerned. You had me worried. His gaze flickered with vulnerability. I've been tangled. Inside, children colored notes for strangers. Firefighters, nurses, bus drivers. Sophie dove in, while Ethan stayed close to Eliza. You okay? She asked. He hesitated, then spoke softly. Ever feel like you've held your breath for a decade, unsure what to do with the air? Eliza's voice softened. All the time. Ethan scanned the room, his voice raw. When Sophie's mom left, I thought I didn't deserve joy if I couldn't keep my family whole. But lately, a whisper tells me I might deserve a second chance. Eliza handed him a child's letter, its crooked handwriting simple. Dear stranger, I believe in you. Don't give up. Emma, age 7. Ethan's eyes shimmered. This isn't for me. It is, Eliza said. It's for all of us. Later, they walked to the train station, autumn's crisp air laced with summer's warmth. On a park bench beneath orange trees, Eliza asked, Why haven't you kissed me? Ethan froze, startled by her unguarded honesty. I didn't want something sacred to feel impulsive, he said. She nodded. I've been waiting for something real, not a transaction. He took her hand, and in that quiet moment, no fanfare, just peace unfolded between them. The next day, Eliza took Ethan and Sophie to her childhood lake house, 3 hours north, where cell signals faded but memories burned bright. The cabin was weathered, honest. Sophie ran to the dock, laughing at leaping frogs. Eliza stood by the water, barefoot, toes kissing the cold. Ethan approached. You came here with your dad? She nodded. Every summer, the only place he laughed. He'd be proud, Ethan said. No, she whispered. He'd see me. That's all I wanted. His hand rested on her back, not claiming, but promising presence. By the fire that night, Sophie snoring softly, Ethan said, I thought broken things didn't belong in this sharp world, but cracks let the light in. Eliza turned, eyes soft. You're not broken, Ethan. You were waiting to be seen. He smiled, eyes shimmering. I see you too. They didn't kiss, not yet. Some moments were about recognition, not arrival. Monday's chill curled through Sky Spire Tower, but its lobby pulsed with warmth. Shared coffees, soft greetings, a company reborn. Ethan stepped off the elevator, holding Sophie's forgotten lunchbox from her important meeting of stuffed animals and imaginary tea. He grinned. Life wasn't perfect, but it was possible, a gift for a man who thought his story had ended. At reception, Clara Nguyen teased, Morning, Ethan. You're glowing. Just the lighting, he quipped. No, she smiled. It's the girl. Chuckling, he headed to Eliza's office but paused. Her voice drifted through the door, strained. I understand. Please keep me posted. Silence followed, heavy. Ethan knocked gently, holding up the lunchbox. Forgotten fuel. Eliza's smile was faint, her composure too perfect. Bad news? He asked, stepping closer. She hesitated. My mother. A palliative care center in Oregon called. Stage 4 cancer. She's been there 3 weeks under a different name. Ethan stood silent, a steady presence. They found a letter in her things, Eliza continued, voice trembling. Addressed to me. 3 years old, never sent. What did it say? She turned, tears brimming but unshed. I'm sorry for never learning to love a daughter who didn't need saving. Eliza's gaze held Ethan's, a fragile bridge spanning the chasm between her girlhood wounds and the fierce woman she'd forged. She wants to see me before she dies, she said, voice trembling with unspoken fear. Ethan paused, then replied, Then let's go. Eliza blinked, startled. What? Let's go, he repeated, steady as stone. Sophie's off school Friday. We'll drive. Take a few days. Ethan, you don't have to. I know, he cut in, his eyes soft but resolute. That's why it matters. 3 days later, they were on the road, Manhattan's skyline fading like a storm cloud in retreat. Sophie napped in the back, a crayon tucked in her small fingers. Eliza stared out the window, silent but not distant, her heart wrestling with what lay ahead. Ethan drove, hands steady, eyes on the horizon. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I'm preparing for no answers, just an ending that's too late. Ethan glanced at her. Don't chase answers, just show her the woman she missed. The hospice nestled in an Oregon valley, cloaked in pine trees and soft fog. Silence hung heavy as a nurse led them to a small room. Eliza froze in the doorway, her mother's frail form barely a whisper of life, translucent as a memory exiled from love. Ethan touched her shoulder. You don't have to go in. No, she said, voice firm. I do. She stepped inside. Her mother stirred, eyes fluttering open. You came, the old woman rasped. Eliza swallowed hard. I got your letter. Tears welled in her mother's eyes. I didn't know how to mother someone so brilliant, so bright. I was afraid. Eliza knelt, voice soft but raw. I tried to hate you, but it never stuck. I just wanted to know if I was enough. Her mother's trembling hand grazed her face. You were too much. My failure, not yours. Say it, Eliza whispered. Say you loved me, even if it was broken. I loved you every day I stayed away, thinking you were safer without me. I was wrong. Eliza closed her eyes, a daughter holding her mother's hand as time slipped away. No titles, no armor, just truth. That night on the hospice porch, Eliza sat wrapped in Ethan's coat, Sophie asleep inside. Ethan joined her with 2 mugs of tea. How do you feel? Empty, she said, but lighter. Her voice softened. I've spent my life waiting for someone to choose me, not from guilt, but because they wanted to. Ethan took her hand. I'm not here for pity. Loving you feels like coming home to a part of me I thought was gone. Eliza looked at their joined hands, then into his eyes. Then stay. Ethan leaned in, his kiss tender, unhurried, born not of passion but presence. In that moment, Eliza felt chosen, not conquered. Back in New York, the city hummed unchanged, But Eliza and Ethan moved with new intention. Less armor, more presence. In Sky Spire Tower's lobby, Ethan held Sophie's hand, both laughing at a private joke. Eliza waited by the elevator, smiling before turning. "You're late," she teased. Ethan grinned. "We stopped for waffles. They don't respect time." Sophie raised her hand proudly. "I ate 3. Eliza's laugh was rich, unguarded. "You're the CEO of breakfast, then." The elevator chimed, carrying 3 souls once strangers, now gravity to each other. But no story ends without a test. 3 days later, Clara Nguyen approached Ethan in the break room, a manila envelope in hand. "You need to see this." He opened it, heart sinking. A legal notice from Sophie's maternal grandparents, petitioning for full custody. The room tilted. Eliza appeared in the doorway, drawn by instinct. Ethan handed her the papers. She read in silence, her face tightening. "They waited all this time," she murmured, "and now they want her back." Ethan's voice cracked. "They're calling me unfit, citing my job history, no college degree, and you." Eliza blinked. "Me?" "They say our relationship makes Sophie's home unstable." Silence cut like a blade. Eliza straightened, fierce. "Then we fight." Ethan shook his head. "You don't have to." "Yes," she said, kneeling before him. "I do. You're not a mess, Ethan. You're a father who's done everything for his daughter. We'll show them." "I don't want to lose her," Ethan whispered, his voice breaking under the weight of fear. Eliza's eyes burned with resolve. "You won't. Not while I'm breathing." Within a week, she secured New York's finest family attorney, not out of obligation, but because Ethan and Sophie were hers now, chosen, not claimed. The courtroom was a cold fortress of wood and silence. Ethan, in his only suit, sat beside Eliza, her composure a shield, her heart a furnace of determination. Across from them, Sophie's grandparents sat, polished and distant, their glances at Ethan laced with disdain, veiled as pity. The judge entered, formalities unfolded, and testimony began. Ethan stood, his voice plain but powerful. "Your Honor, I don't have a mansion or degrees, but I have love. I pack Sophie's lunch, braid her hair, badly, walk her to school, read to her at night. I see her. Money can't measure that." Eliza rose next, her presence commanding, yet unguarded. "I'm Eliza Hart, CEO of Hart Enterprises. But that's not why I'm here. I've seen Ethan love Sophie with a depth and gentleness that surpasses most families. She's thriving, safe, loved, happy. If that's not a fit parent, the system's broken, not Ethan." Whispers rippled through the courtroom. Then Sophie took the stand, a quiet girl with a fiery heart. The judge leaned down. "Who do you want to live with?" Sophie looked at Ethan, then Eliza, and said, clear and strong, "With my daddy and Miss Eliza. They see me, not as a prize, but as a person. I want to be a kid." The judge nodded, his words shattering the silence. "Custody remains with Mr. Cole. Motion denied." Relief crashed into Ethan, a war lifting from his shoulders. That night in Eliza's apartment, Sophie slept soundly. On the balcony, Eliza poured 2 glasses of wine, the city's breath pulsing below. Ethan watched the skyline, his heart still racing. "You held it together," Eliza said softly. He exhaled. "I was terrified." "You didn't show it," she replied, her smile warm. He met her gaze. "Because you were there." She stepped closer. "Always will be." "Why?" he asked, voice low. "Because the world told us we weren't worthy of love, family, peace, and we proved it wrong." She handed him a glass. "To truth." He clinked hers gently. "To second chances." In that quiet triumph, 2 souls once buried by shame stood tall in the light they built together. Spring arrived softly, cherry blossoms drifting like confetti across Queens sidewalks. The wind carried warmth, coaxing smiles from strangers. In a brownstone off Riverside, a family was learning to stay. Laughter filled the kitchen, soft and full, the kind born of belonging. Sophie stood on a stool, wielding a whisk like a scepter. "I declare this pancake royally perfect," she proclaimed, flipping it with flair. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Edible this time. Define edible, she grinned. Eliza, barefoot in jeans, her hair loosely braided, laughed from the kitchen island. The city's most powerful woman now ruled this domestic kingdom with joy. You two are dangerous, she teased. Ethan leaned in. Only when unsupervised. Sophie pointed at them. Today's a big day. You promised. They exchanged a glance. We remember, Ethan said. How could we forget, Eliza added. The day unfolded in a Queens community garden Ethan had helped rebuild. A patch of green carved from concrete, lined with wildflowers and a stubborn oak that had weathered storms. It wasn't a wedding or a merger, but a vow to begin anew. Clara Nguyen stood teary-eyed, Harold Grayson surprisingly emotional, and former janitors, now full employees under Eliza's reforms, beamed in pressed shirts, no tuxedos, just sunlight. Sophie, holding a book of handwritten vows, whispered, Ready? Ethan nodded. Eliza smiled. Let's do this. Sophie cleared her throat dramatically. These aren't wedding vows. They're forever promises. The crowd chuckled. Ethan began, voice steady. Eliza, I promise to walk with your strength, to laugh when life's heavy, to build a home in words and choices, not just walls. Eliza's eyes shimmered. Ethan, I thought love had to be earned. You showed me it's recognized. I promise to see your gentleness as strength, to love Sophie as a gift, not a duty. Sophie sniffled loudly. Okay, that part got me. Laughter broke the quiet. Eliza knelt to Sophie. To you, I promise space for your voice, your dreams, and your weird pancake experiments. I'm not weird, Sophie whispered. You're magical, Eliza said. Ethan placed his hand on theirs, three souls bound not by blood, but by intention. That evening, the brownstone glowed with candles, friends, and food. On the balcony, Eliza leaned on Ethan's shoulder, the city humming below. Remember when I caught you cleaning vending machines? She teased. He laughed. Remember when you thought I was stealing? You were unplugging the server rack, she grinned. In that moment, they weren't perfect, just whole. Eliza turned to Ethan, her eyes soft, a quiet bridge between old wounds and the woman she'd become. Thank you for staying, she said, voice barely above a whisper, even when I didn't deserve your patience. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle as dawn. Thank you for believing you're worthy of love. A tender silence fell, heavy with truth. Are you happy, Ethan? She asked, almost shy. He looked at her, really looked, his gaze a homecoming. I'm not just happy, I'm home. That night, Sophie slipped into their room, dragging a blanket like a comet's tail. I had a dream, she said, climbing between them. What was it? Eliza asked, pulling her close. We were a team, forever, the kind that doesn't break, even in rain. Ethan smiled. Sounds like a memory, kiddo. Sophie's eyes fluttered shut. Maybe both. As New York slept, wrapped in its restless rhythm, their small family lay cocooned in warmth, no longer waiting for enough. They were full of it. Years later, stories would be written of Eliza Hart, the CEO who wielded Grace's power, of Ethan Cole, the janitor whose brilliance wore boots in humility, of Sophie, the girl whose joy stitched their hearts together. But those were mere footnotes. The real story lived in the quiet repetitions, coffee cups shared, bedtime stories whispered, hard truths faced, hands held through storms. Love doesn't always arrive in fireworks. It blooms in the ordinary, in choices to stay, to see, to heal. If this tale stirred your heart, pause and breathe it in. The greatest victories aren't grand. They're the quiet resilience of everyday love, the second chances that unfold when no one's watching. We want to hear from you. Where are you reading this, and what moment lingered most? Share your thoughts below. We cherish every word. If you believe in stories of hope, healing, and humanity, join us for more. From our storytelling family to yours, thank you for being here. Until the next story.